Hey guys, we have a new hero today. Well, it is currently on the public test realm and will be available next week for you guys to play. This is a BlizzCon hero, and what that means is it's a hero that would normally be released around BlizzCon. What we normally get around BlizzCon is either very weird or very unique heroes. Things like the Lost Vikings came out in the first BlizzCon with Heroes of Storm. Cho'Gall came out a couple years later, and we ended up with some very weird heroes around BlizzCons. Because this is when BlizzCon was supposed to be happening, this was going to be our BlizzCon released hero. BlizzCon got moved back because of COVID, and it's also only going to be virtual, so they decided to just release Hogger as our hero, and that is what we have, Hogger. If you were unfamiliar with Hogger, Hogger was a kind of a mini boss in the starting zone for humans in World of Warcraft. He was a quest that was just a tad too difficult to do alone for most of the classes, which means that you usually had to get a few extra players. Well, people brand new to World of Warcraft would usually be familiar with doing every quest alone, and so Hogger was the one that pretty much got the majority of the kills on new players. In fact, I believe a stat was released that said Hogger had the most player kills outside of specific raid bosses. And thus, they ended up making him a raid boss at some point. I believe it was an expansion ago or two, and he had some really wacky abilities that were just wild. So, with that being said, we may end up with a very weird hero in here. We may end up with a really cool hero. What I've noticed just from pure talent reads and a little bit of playthrough, he seems very, very strong. So, again, I wouldn't be surprised if his numbers were toned down a little bit. But let's get into it. If you guys are unfamiliar with how I do new heroes, I explain every single ability, I explain the traits, I explain all the talents, and then I go through and I give a couple example builds that I think would be pretty strong. With that being said, let's get right into it. So, I'm actually going to start off by explaining his trait first, and then also his rage, which isn't explained in his trait, it's explained over here. So, the first thing that I want to explain is his trait. His trait has a 20-second cooldown, which is rather low. You toss a pile of junk onto the battlefield. So, let's throw it right here. What you're going to notice is that there are actually terrain indicators on the edge of this. So if you are playing with an Ariel or anything, then what you're going to have on this is a target that someone can slam them against into. Same with a Diablo, Ariel. So it does give terrain. When the loot horde expires or is destroyed, a chunk of meat falls out that can be picked up to restore 3% of max health every second for 5 seconds. So about 15% of your health, give or take. And I say give or take because there's talents. But that is Loot Horde. Now let's go to Rage. Rage is gained by taking damage or dealing basic attack damage. Hogger's basic ability cooldowns refresh 1% faster for every 2 points of Rage. So you can have 100 Rage, which means that your cooldowns can refresh 50% faster, or that's a 25% cut off of cooldowns, because if they recharge 100% faster, that'd be a 50% cut off cooldowns, just so you guys kind of understand. So his first ability is a 12-second cooldown that we can shave off 4 seconds on average by having 100 Rage. Now, you might be saying, well, how fast do you stack up Rage? Rather fast. If you're landing a lot of your abilities, you can stack up your Rage in fights very, very quickly if you're taking damage and everything. So it's rather fast, but it also decays rather fast. He is a brawler. His role is considered bruiser, but he is a brawler in fights. He wants kind of longer, drawn-out fights that are a little chaotic, and he's going to thrive in that. So that is his rage and how that works. It's mainly just basic abilities at the start without any talents. It doesn't affect anything else. Now, well, and one of his abilities. So his first ability is called Staggering Blow. You swing your chain in a wide arc, dealing damage, about 150 damage at level 1. And you do an extra 150 damage if you stun them. If you hit them against the terrain, which will stun them. So you can create your own terrain, and then you can slam them up against it, doing that good burst of damage. We'll set it to level 20 just so you guys can see kind of what the end game numbers are for everything. But yeah, so that's probably one of the combos you're going to be doing a lot. The knockback is not that long. So, for example, this wall back here, you're probably not going to be able to get them all the way over to that wall. And it does follow the conventions of a circle knockback, not like Urel's. So Urel's, if someone was on the edge right here, and you were firing it in this direction, this would still be knocked in this direction, but the knockback is always away from you and not in the direction of the knockback itself. So it works different from Urel's, but it works more similarly to like ETC's knockback. There is also like a teeny like delay with it. I don't know how to explain it, but you can see how it goes out from the left to the right. So it probably won't make a huge difference, but there is an area that they could possibly walk. If they're on this side of you, you might want to give it just a teeny bit of extra room. So instead of doing it to where they're on the edge right there, it might take a little too long for this to go. So you want to give it just a little bit more space on the left side. Your W is called Easy Throw Dynamite. It's kind of similar to Gazlow's Dynamite in that it takes a second to explode, but it does actually explode on contact, which is a little different from Gazlow's. If you throw it directly on someone, it explodes. Now, what this does is it does damage, it slows, and if you hit them directly, you gain extra rage. And it's a pretty good ability if you're just trying to like set up on a fight. So you throw in a quick slow, then you throw out this, hit him, slam him against the wall, hit him again, and we just did 1912 damage. Backliners usually have about 2500 health at this level, and I didn't even use all my abilities. I literally used a trait, a W, and a Q, and we have no talents yet. So you could imagine that if you can combo your abilities really well, he can do quite a bit of damage, and he can be very effective. So about 60 to 70% of a backliner's health with just that combo alone. Now let's talk about the Wild ability. So he has an ability called Hog Wild, and it's going to be easier to just show than explain. So you can see that there's a little indicator here, and let me step up just a tad. I'm going to align this to the best of my ability. You can see the timer is going to keep going every time that it hits a wall. It's going to keep going. Now, I believe it's slowly moving down, so eventually it's going to hit a corner and bounce off, and then it's going to time out. But if it doesn't time out, here we go. There we go. And that is Hog Wild. Its duration is increased by the more rage that you have, and its duration is reset every time that you hit a wall. It does do really decent damage. Like, it's not bad as far as damage goes, but it's not as good as your regular abilities or basic attacks. So unless you have a really tight space and you've taken talents for it, I would imagine this is going to be better for engages and disengages. You could do some pretty crazy stuff with it too. I mean, you could slow someone, you could drop out your trait, and then you can go back here, cancel it early, stun them into this so your team can kill them closer to your team. And so I think that the players that are going to get really good at Hogger are going to understand that there's a lot of uses from Hog Wild. I think just in general, it's a really good engage. You get that extra rage, and which means that it's going to last just a tad longer, and you can send people into your team and start just hitting them. So I definitely think that it's going to be a good engage. It's going to be a good flank tool. It's going to be really, really neat. But I think this is going to be the thing that kind of screws new players, where they think that it's going to be really fun to just bounce off walls forever, and they're going to really miss out on what Hogger brings to the table otherwise, just because this is fun. But don't get me wrong, this is fun. So that is that. I mean, it would be pretty cool with something like an entomb. You go in the middle of an entomb, and you use this, and then you just pop the loot horde so that you're stuck in the entomb and you're just bouncing around like crazy for 4 seconds. I think that would be really cool. But again, outside of like very weird exceptions like that, I don't really expect it. And that's going to take a lot of setup time too. You're going to have to walk into entomb, drop down your W or your trait, and then use your E and start bouncing. So that's already going to burn a decent amount of time. So I'm not 100% sure how useful this is going to be. Okay, let's talk a little bit about his ults. I'm just going to pick random talents really quick, and we are going to talk about his first ult. 50-second cooldown ult. It's called Hortapult. Hortapult. Launch an empowered loot horde with Hogger attached. So you're going to fly like this, and you're going to land down. What this loot horde does, we're going to destroy this for now. What this loot horde does, it deals damage and it slows enemies by 50% for 2 seconds. It's also considered terrain. Loot horde lasts for 20 seconds, decaying rapidly while not nearby. Every 10 seconds, a chunk of meat will drop out, which heals you for about 15% of your health over 5 seconds. So that is Hortapult. It's a great engage, and it also allows for more terrain. You will always show up on the other side of the terrain. So let's say, for example, you want to lock out a zone. You could throw one here, and you can throw one here. And now you've locked down a zone, so it's harder to get by, and you can like create walls and stuff. So those are definitely some pretty cool tools that you can use to lock down areas, and the slow and damage is not bad either. You can almost always jump to the other side of it, stun, and get some pretty huge damage off. And again, it's burning people around it as well. So it's a great tool if you're trying to dive a backliner, get a quick stun kill on a backliner, and then gain your life and use your E to get away. I think that is going to be a really powerful tool to just dive backline. Now let's talk about his other ult really quick. His other ult has a 70-second cooldown. And what this ult does is it will slam the first person hit, and then it also has a line that will do a quick knock up on the ones behind it. And the stun here is a little bit larger. The knock up here is a little bit shorter. But it's a pretty powerful tool if you're going to just be fighting with your team a little bit more rather than diving a backliner. And it's not a bad tool. It's nice. The 70-second cooldown is going to make me feel like the Hortapult's going to be used more often, even though stuns are just generally more valuable. But we will definitely see as the game goes on what we'll see after some balance and stuff like that. Let's get into the talents now. So let's start off by his level 1 talents. He has a quest, Journeyman's Cooking. Each hero hit by Easy Throw Dynamite heals you for 6% of your max health. A quest, hitting heroes with Easy Throw Dynamite permanently increases your max health by 10, maximum of 750 maximum health. That's 75 to complete your quest, and it is an 8-second cooldown, and it's not too difficult to land your W. It's a pretty fast ability that you can throw off, and if you're closer, there's less travel time, so it would be really hard for someone to even see that you're throwing that and get away from it in time. Not only that, you can kind of combo it with your wall, stun, and then into your throw, and you'll always be able to get one stack and also win most trades in just a short bursts, and you can also pick up that meat, worst case. So your trades are really good, and this could be a great talent. I've actually thought about this if you wanted to go main tank, because this extra 750 health puts you closer to main tanks, even though he's a bruiser. But he has a lot of engage potential and a lot of CC, even a decent amount of peeling. And so it makes me wonder if he could be a main tank, and this would be a required talent if you wanted to go main tank. But let's talk about the rest of the build, or the rest of the talents, so that we can get moving on with this video a little bit. Loot Horde creates a chunk of meat when it lands, and while under the effect of meat, you gain 10 armor. So that means that you're going to throw this out, it's going to land, you're going to get meat for 5 seconds, and then it's going to drop, and you're going to get meat for 5 more seconds. That's going to give you 10 seconds of healing, a potential of 30 health, and 10 armor, 30% of your max health, and 10 armor, which is pretty good. Because it's also going to effectively increase your effective health by 10%. So that's good. Now, this is the talent that I feel like is going to be really, really good. On the Prowl. Activate to gain 30 rage over 8 seconds. You heal for 13 health every second, increased by 2% per point of rage. So if you're at 100 rage, that is a lot of health. That's like having a Malfury and regrowth on you at all times. Almost, but pretty close to that. That's a lot of health regen. Not to mention it gives you an ability to kind of gain rage really quickly on a cooldown, so that's good. These are the level 1 talents. We'll take On the Prowl for now. Now let's talk about the level 4 talents. Level 4 is usually more utility based, and it's a little less based on just pure numbers. So Brute Force, increase the range of your loot horde, which is the, it's your trait. Hitting heroes with Staggering Blow permanently increases basic attack damage by 1 to a maximum of 100. Enemy heroes that hit terrain grants an additional 2. So this is a stack that's going to increase your basic attack damage, which is by a decent amount, and it seems rather easy to get, especially since we're going to be comboing our trades. So it should be relatively easy to get. When you get into team fights, I mean, you're hitting 3 people at a time and potentially getting stuns if it's in a tight area. Then we have aggro range, increases Hog Wild's radius by 25%. Each hero hit gives you 1 rage. Each enemy hit. This means it doesn't need to be a hero. It could be a wave. 1 rage increased to 3 against heroes. Hogger's Joggers. While above 30 rage, gain 10% increased movement speed and healing received. While above 50 rage, increase these bonuses to 15%. And again, with On the Prowl, you're going to be able to get above that 30 rage by just activating this ability. And then you'll have that movement speed and healing increase. So I will admit, for an auto attack build, I'm really debating this talent or this talent because the extra movement speed allows you to kind of stutter step and keep up with the targets a little bit better. But the extra damage on basic attacks is going to be really valuable later on. But the extra healing kind of evens that out as well. I'll talk about that later. But again, we're going to probably look at Brute Force. Now at level 7, this is usually where you get your first damage-based power spike. And so the first talent is Seeing Red. While above 50% rage, gain 25% attack speed, and the cooldowns of Staggering Blow and Hog Wild refresh 30% faster. Remember, they already will be refreshing 25% faster based on the rage that you have. So that should be about 55% faster when taking this talent. Dense Blasting Powder. Instant detonations of easy throw dynamites creates an additional dynamite behind the hero hit. Hitting the bundle of easy throw dynamites with Staggering Blow breaks it into 3 sticks and launches them forward in an arc. So what this talent looks like is if you throw 1 and it lands, it automatically explodes and throws 1 extra dynamite. If you end up throwing this and missing it, you can use your Q to send forward extra explosions. Each one of these will slow. Now, what I do want to test is the interaction of if this combos with the other talent at all. So let's go into here really quick and see if either one of these will get the quest stacks twice or even heal you twice. So let me get low health and we will see how this is. And again, you can see Bruiser health. He is pretty tanky. He's kind of like Imperious without the armor. Okay, so let's test out the first one, and hopefully the range is good. So we gain health. Let's see. Do we gain health again? We do gain health again, and we get stacks for each one. Let's check the knockback varieties. All right, so we gained health, and we gained quests. So this is not... The ones that it sends out are talented versions of your Staggering Blow, or sorry, of your easy throw. So as a main tank, this would make this very good because you can slow entire teams. If you miss and they're running away and you miss, you could quickly just use your Q to slow everyone and also get a bunch of stacks. So this seems like a great talent for main tanks. Let's continue, and I'm just going to grab random talents. And the last one is Garbage Fire. Reduce the cooldown of Loot Horde by 4 seconds. Every 0.5 seconds, enemies in a large area around Loot Horde take 55 damage and are slowed. So that's, again, it's a pretty good talent for just getting a little bit of better trades, especially if you're going to combo off of your Loot Horde. You throw this out, you stun against the Loot Horde, and then you're hitting them a couple times, and they're getting extra burn damage while they're sitting there. So it does seem like a pretty cool talent. We'll take one of the ults for now, and we'll move on to the level 13 talents. Level 13 talents for most tiers are usually healing or mobility talents. The first talent is Dust Devil. Gain 40 armor while Hog Wild is active for 3 seconds after. And also for 3 seconds after. One above 50 rage, increase the armor to 60. Pummel. Enemies hit with Hog Wild are slowed 10% for 1.5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Heroes hit have their spell power reduced by 50% for 3 seconds. And then we have Bloodthirst. Damaging heroes with basic attacks, Staggering Blow, or Hog Wild heals you for 33% of the damage dealt. So just giving you an idea, Hog Wild, Staggering Blow, and basic attacks will heal you for 33%. Keep in mind you can increase your basic attack damage here, or you can increase the amount of healing you receive here, as well as movement speed. So all of these are pretty interesting options. So we'll take this for now. And then we've got level 16. Level 16 talents are usually your big power spikes that are kind of the last talent that you get before oftentimes the final fights of the game. Headbanger. Enemy heroes stunned by Staggering Blow take an additional 8% of their max health as damage and are stunned for an additional 0.5 seconds. It stuns for 0.75, so this will make the stun duration 1.25, which is equivalent to ETC's Power Slide. And 8% of their max health is pretty good. Kablooey. Instant easy throw dynamite detonations deal 40% more damage, reduce its cooldown by 1.5 seconds, and increase the slow amount to 50%. Easy throw dynamite's range is increased by 25%. Keep in mind that this will also trigger multiple times with the dense blasting powder, so you could potentially lower your W to have almost no cooldown if you're throwing it with your W and then Qing it. So it could, again, allow for some pretty crazy plays as far as slows go and as far as self-survivability if you combine Bloodthirst with the extra 8% or the 6% healing. And the last one is called Berserker. Hitting heroes with Staggering Blow or Easy Throw Dynamites increases the damage of your next basic attack within 8 seconds by 50%, stacking up to 2 times. When Hog Wild ends, gain 30% movement speed for 2 seconds. So this can kind of cover the movement speed problem of this. And this makes it to where you can still go with the increased basic attack damage, so you'll still get the healing bonuses, and you'll get increased damage. I do think that this build will be a rage version of an auto attack build, will be a standard build, just because of the amount of consistent damage you can bring to the team. And then I also believe that the easy throw dynamites will be a build of some sort, just because of how tanky you're going to be to keep throwing those dynamites everywhere. And so those are the level 16 talents. Level 20 talents are oftentimes the be-all, end-all talents. Some heroes that have really powerful early games have very weak level 20 talents because they need to be able to compensate for the fact that they've got a strong early to mid game. Some people have a little bit weaker early to middle games, and they have level 20 talents that can be absolutely game-ending. Things like Entomb, Buried Alive, or Death March, or anything like that can be absolutely devastating at level 20. Let's see where Hogger ends up. Secret Stash. Every 2 seconds, Hortapult's Loot Horde randomly throws easy throw dynamites, prioritizing nearby enemy heroes. Every 5 seconds, it also launches a chunk of meat towards Hogger. So this would be huge in your dynamite build, because you're going to be healing off of your dynamites. Your dynamites are going to be slowing for 50% because these do not say untalented versions. And guess what else this is going to do? Let's wait till it throws out some. Oh, we can't do the Q on it. It's just the basic dynamites. But either way, let's see if these heal. Because if these are untalented, then it's not going to be great. But let's see if this heals. Just healing off of the rage. I'm not healing off of the actual dynamite. So they are untalented. Which... Easy throw dynamites. It's interesting. It's untalented. It does still have those chunks of meat, though, so it's pretty good. But that is kind of interesting. It doesn't account for... Oh, I didn't have the talents. I'm an idiot. That's why. So let's go back over here, and let's see if this Hortapult, Pummel... It doesn't really matter what we take here, but we'll take all of these talents. Instant detonations, reduce the cooldown, and let's see what we get. So let's throw the Hortapult here. And let's see. So it is getting the quest. The only thing that I can't see, though... Okay, let's throw out my W. Does this affect the cooldown? It even lowers the cooldown, too. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to turn this off. I want to get this a little further away. And I want to see if it, if I can use the Q on it. No, I can't. So it's still talented, but you don't have the level 7 talent. But yeah, I mean, having that, let's see what kind of healing this is. We'll refresh forwards really quick. This was also after I picked up a meat, so it's not like this OP. But I mean, imagine this, like, imagine you dropping like this and then throwing out like a W. Look at your health. Like, you heal so much. Look at that cooldown. Oh, I have toggle cooldowns on, but still. Look at that cooldown, though. This is crazy. And then you'll also be able to still pick up the meat. So, it's a lot of damage and a lot of slows. About 1,000 DPS during the time that Hortapult is going on. It's about 1,000 DPS if you're just comboing stuff on it. So that's and a ton of healing. I mean, you're healing for 6% of your health. And I mean, look at how much of this quest I got done just in one ult. So it's going to be easy to get this quest done for sure. Let's talk about his other level 20 talents really quick. Let me just I'll take the other ult for now. And the next one is called Power Spike. Hitting heroes with Shockwave reduces their armor by 15 and grants you 20 rage. Rage cooldown reduction effects. Shockwave's cooldown. Okay, so let's toggle cooldown so I get a fresh bar of rage, and then let's see how much we would get if we pop this ult and see how this affects the cooldown reduction. Does not feel like it's affecting the cooldown reduction very much. Rage cooldown affects Shockwave's cooldown. I don't believe that this is working. Because you can see it's counting down a lot faster over here. Okay, it is affecting it. It's just not a very big effect. Yeah. Either way, let's talk about his other level 20s. Let's go into the ones that are not mutually exclusive with the other ults. No control. Activate to cast an untalented Hog Wild and begin chasing an enemy hero. After reaching a hero, bounce to a random nearby enemy hero. Lasts 6 seconds, rapidly decaying if there are no enemy heroes nearby. Let's activate this on this guy right here, and let's see where you end up. So as far as DPS goes, and this is untalented, it's not bad. But again, I feel like this is not as good as just using your other abilities that have CC, slows, self-healing, all that other stuff, rather than an untalented version of Hog Wild. But it's a fun talent either way. Let's see what this last talent is right here. We have Anger Management. Increase maximum rage by 50. Remember, this is going to increase your maximum cooldown rate and Hog Wild's damage. So the cooldown refresh rate will go up to 75%. Hog Wild's damage will go up to 150. So having 150 rage will also help in some other areas. This, for example, has another potential 100% increase healing off of that extra health per second. That health per second would also increase if you did end up taking the extra healing bonuses. Instead of going auto attack based, you could just go straight for healing over time. And then you also have there's some other rage things. So this is just above 50%. But yeah, there are a couple other things that it scales with, which is kind of nice. So ultimately, the most healing you could have just over time if you had full let's toggle cooldowns and let's click on ourselves, take some damage. So that's the strange part, is we should be okay. Yeah, we are healing, so we're healing 45 a second on top of our 10 per second. It's not bad, but it's not as much as I was hoping to commit to talent. Oh, I don't have the rest of the talent. So 45 per second. We'll throw in, let's see if there's anything else. While above 50 rage. We would probably do that because it's just a rage build. Would probably go Hortapult. And let's see if we want anything here. None of these really matter too much. And same thing, these none of these really matter. You'd probably grab the stun and then anger management. And let's see what our... So now we go up to 60 health per second on top of our 10. So we're at 70 health per second. Again, during a team fight, this is going to be mostly irrelevant. So I'm not a huge fan of the rage build now that I'm just looking at the numbers. I mean, having a permanent movement speed in fights and also having the ability to do 8% of someone's health really quick, where you just throw down this, smack them. I mean, you are still gaining health off of your thing. You've got lower cooldowns. So like, what is our cooldowns for some of these abilities? Yeah, I mean, like, these aren't bad cooldowns. And our healing's not bad. Our stuns are going to do a lot. But honestly, this build does just not have the impact initially that some of the other builds will have. So I'm not a huge fan of this build. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the builds that I think will be pretty good. The first build I think is going to be the grenade build. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be strong. It's got a lot of survivability, a decent amount of CC. So you're going to take Journeyman's Cooking so that you have that extra healing, as well as you're going to have that extra health. Then at this level, there's a few things that you can take. You can take increased healing while above rage and also more movement speed. And because we're not going to be using a lot of basic attacks, I mean, and our Qs are going to be oftentimes on our W, I would say increase healing and movement speed. At level 7, you need to take the create more easy throws to make this build work. Level 10, we're going to want to take Hortipult for the off chance we get to level 20. Level 13, we're going to most likely take the Bloodthirst, so we get increased healing from our basic attacks and our staggering blow. But I wouldn't mind this to reduce spell power while we're waiting for like the next W to come out. And so I would be actually okay with any talents here, but I think Bloodthirst is just going to make you just a tanky monster. And then we're also going to go with Kablooey, increasing the damage as well as reducing the cooldown of our grenades. And then finally, we're going to upgrade to Secret Stash. Once you get into team fights, you're pretty much just going to abuse the low cooldowns. You're going to throw out your ult, you're going to throw out a W, and then you're going to drop out one of these, stun them against the wall, and just start spreading bombs as much as possible, lowering the cooldowns of your bombs, as well as just getting as much value as you possibly can, stunning things into your horde, and also throwing extra grenades if you can. And I think that this build is just going to be absolutely incredible in team fights, and it's going to add so much zone control and a ton of ability to just keep hitting people repeatedly. You're also going to have a ridiculous amount of healing. During team fights, you're going to gain so much health, and you're going to see that your extra movement speed and healing is going to be incredible. So we're just going to make sure that this is good, and we're just going to head in here, and again, we're going to throw out a Q like this. We're going to throw out a trait, and we're going to Q him into that. Oh, we missed the timing a little bit. It's a little tricky, but, I mean, just watch the health. Like, this is without even having your... without even having your ult going. With your ult going, meat is being thrown out, healing you. So this build right here is going to be bruiser, utility, and damage. But you're also going to be pretty tanky. You're going to have almost tank health. So when your quest is complete, you're going to have 5,830 health. If we were to bring out, let's say, a Joanna, a pretty common tank, now, of course, she has her extra survivability tools where he won't have those, but he will have way more healing, self-healing than she will have. If we look at her health, she's at 57.57. We're at 58.38. So we have more health than Joanna, more self-healing than Joanna. We are technically a scarier, or a harder to kill tank than Joanna. The only downside is you don't have a lot of peel, but you could save your staggering blow for peel, and then you can just use your W to be an annoyance, your W and your ult to be an annoyance. You can engage with this, block them out, stun them into it once, throw out a W, and then you can go back and start getting ready to peel for your team. But ultimately, I think that he's going to be mainly someone that just kind of jumps on their backline, out heals the damage of their team, and just is as annoying as possible. Trying to get the meat that's thrown out, and just dominating. So I think that's really where he's going to end up being. And he's going to be rather scary with that too. I mean, team fights are going to be pretty wild. So I think that's build number 1. Build number 2, I would imagine you're just going to take really powerful talons on each tier. I think increasing rage is going to be key, even if you're not going to take the other talons. This allows you to kind of stay in lane a little bit longer. Just a passive 13 health per second is going to allow you to take trades much better. Then I'd imagine you're going to go the auto attack talents, so like brute force. And then I think you're going to go with increased attack speed, as well as lowering the cooldown of your abilities. I think that's going to be pretty big. So we're going to take that. Shockwave or Hortipult's fine. I think Hortipult, again, gets you into the backline really quickly, and I believe that this build is going to have enough damage to take out a backliner before they realize what's going on. Then we're going to take Bloodthirst. Bloodthirst is going to give you that healing that you need, since you're going to be doing more basic attack damage, as well as you're going to be having a much lower cooldown on your staggering blow. And then we're going to go with Berserker. Hitting enemies with staggering blow or easy throw dynamites increases your damage by 50%. Also, you're going to gain that 30% movement speed after you activate that. And then we'll probably upgrade Secret Stash. Anger Management could be okay, but I mean, the extra cooldown reduction would be pretty big. But the extra utility of this just seems way too good. But we won't even take that talent yet. Let's assume that we're level 16, and let's pull out an Ana really quick, just to show how this build would be utilized to quickly take out an Ana. By level 16, hopefully your quest is done. Let's say you were just using it on a enemy laner for the first half of the game. Whenever they stepped up every 8 seconds, yeah. And so you'd find an enemy Ana, and you would just ult into the enemy Ana, and you'd want to use your ult to where you can dive onto her, deal the damage, and have that terrain available. So kind of like this, and then we're going to slam her into the wall, and look at her health go. Like, I mean, this is a crazy thing. And you're also going to have, when you do this jump in, you're going to have 30% more movement speed. So that's the craziest part about this. You're jumping in, and you can activate your On the Prowl first, so you always have that rage. But yeah, so we would toggle cooldowns, we'd pop our rage, and then we would ult in, slam her against the wall, throw a stun at her, and then look at her health go. I mean, 600 crits, and you can always use your E to just get out. And now you can go back in if you want with your team, and then throw in a trait and slam someone against a wall again. The amount of survivability you're going to have in these fights is actually really good. And you're constantly going to heal off of everything that you're doing. You're going to just throw out slows, getting those crits, and you're going to have very low cooldowns on your Q and on your E. So in case you ever need to just quickly do anything in between while you're waiting for abilities, this build is going to be a lot of bully damage, and it's going to be kills quickly. So I think this is going to be the bruiser-ish build if you need a bully in lane, and if you want to dive into the enemy backline, quickly get a kill. Now, you could potentially dive with your Hog Wild and then use the other ult, and that might be more beneficial, but still, the damage potential and the stun potential of just going with Hortipult seems kind of crazy. And you can do it in any way. Like, you could go like this, for example, and then slam her into the wall like that, or you can jump to where, and again, I mean, this is just crazy, and then just crit. I mean, it's a lot of damage in this build. You do a lot of damage. So that, I would imagine, is going to be the other build. You can go Anger Management for even lower cooldowns at this level, and that increased healing, since we are taking those talents that I spoke about earlier. You'll pop your 1, you'll get your cooldown, or your rage up really high, and then we're just going to keep just hitting people, getting really, really low cooldowns, just stunning people against walls, throwing out W's, getting extra healing. So I'd imagine this is going to be more single target damage, but less healing and less survivability than the other build. But sometimes you need that single target damage. It's kind of the difference between going spin build on Sonya and going just the auto attack build. Auto attack build, you can quickly kill one target that you need to kill, where spin build, you kind of have to do a You do AoE damage. You don't really necessarily kill anyone, but you're really hard to kill. So that's what I kind of feel the difference of these two builds are, and I feel like both of these could be meta builds. His stats already are pretty incredible. He does a lot of damage. He seems like he could potentially be a bully. I don't know exactly what matchups he's going to win or lose yet, but he does have a ton of potential. I mean, just stuff like this is just crazy. Like, the amount of damage you have. And then again, you're going to be dropping down and getting, like, heal things. You can kind of kite around your team a little bit and get extra meat. I mean, it's crazy how much you can have in this build. So I'm on the fence about the level 20 talent in this build, but I think the rest of the build kind of just makes sense and works out really well. So what do you guys think about Hogger? What do you want to try out the most? Is there a specific combo or anything that you'd like to see from him? He seems like a really fun hero, and I do think that he's going to have some meta builds. I think that he can be used as a main tank, but he does have some downsides. Excuse me. He does have some downsides. So what do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. I think he's a lot of fun to play, and I think that he's going to be someone that a lot of people are going to want to play. He definitely fits the bruiser role, and that's something that I didn't actually check. So the minions on this, because I've been in here for 40 minutes, are probably scaled up a little bit. So I want to see if as early as level 7, can he double soak? So let's refresh forts. Because that's a big thing that's important about solo laners, is if they can double soak. So what we're probably going to need to do is we're going to need to... Let's take the build that I think is going to be the most fun, which is going to be this build. So this is level 7, and let's see if he can double soak. So we'll probably want to hit the backline minions once each. You know, W's a low enough cooldown, you probably just throw 2 of these out. And then you just mount up, grab that experience, and we go down and we do the same thing. We'll hit the next lane, we'll throw out a W, we'll hit the backline minions once each, and then we just go like this, and would mount up, and would go back up here. And since we're healing whenever we throw out a W if the enemy's nearby, this probably isn't going to be too bad. We could potentially use a Q with this as well. Oh, not quite. The Q doesn't do a lot of damage unless you stun. So I'd imagine it's just going to be too easy to throw dynamites every time, which is about the same wave clear as Urel. Urel usually has to take about 6 seconds to clear a lane, where it's about 8 because you have to channel. Well, I guess you don't, because you do an E, which doesn't need to be channeled, and then you do a trait Q, and then you do another E, which doesn't need to be channeled. So about 6 to 7 seconds is how long it takes Urel to clear a lane at level 7. So Hogger is going to be right in that same area of about 8 to 10 seconds, because you'll have to wait for the second one to go out. But yeah, he can definitely double soak, so that's going to be easy. You won't need to commit too much, just 2 easy throw dynamites, about 3 basic attacks. And you can also still like bully the enemy laner, worst case, where you go like this. Maybe the enemy laner's up there, you slam him against the wall. Couple auto attacks, and throw out your W. It's going to be very similar to like Leoric and Urel. So not bad. Is possible to get some value out of it. But yeah, so he can double soak, so he can be a solo laner. He can tank. The downsides to tank is he does lack a little bit of peel. Your best peel is going to be like, let's say you're fighting in here, you're going to E through the enemies, you're going to bounce up here and just knock the enemies away, and probably put some terrain in between your healer and like the enemy team, and then you're just going to go back to throwing stuff down again, pick up the meat, and go back. So there is potential for peel, but it's not going to be as good as like ETC or Joanna. But it's still going to be pretty decent. So yeah, I think that he can, his main role is a bruiser, but I do think that he could potentially main tank if you have a good reason to make him as main tank. You just don't want to waste Hog Wild, because then the enemies are just going to walk right past you and just go kill your team. So I think Hog Wild is going to be the determiner of how people use Hogger to be really dominant, or how people can really screw up on Hogger very quickly. I think it could do a lot of damage in specific areas, but because again, if you can just align this really well, you can almost bounce off forever. But overall, this is Hogger. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see if I can't get a gameplay video out soon, and feel free to check out all the rest of my videos.